On behalf of ManageArtworks, I'd like to thank you for attending this presentation. I'm Vic Stalem, and I'm based in Philadelphia, the city of brotherly love. Along with me, we have our founder and CEO, Bilba, who will be making the second half of the presentation, and he's based out of Chennai, India. I wanted to start off by sharing some customer milestones. We're really proud to partner with our customers and help them to have over 4,000 brands to use our system and help them. And in addition to that, there've been over 10 million, artworks processed, as you can see here, and that's another key milestone that we're all proud of. The other milestone that we've helped our customers is, in terms of the savings, from a labor perspective. And this is something that we track with our customers and make sure that the system is productive and bringing value to them. Stepping back, when we look at our customer segments, the three major segments that we serve are food and beverages, by far the largest segment. In addition to that, we also serve the life sciences, the healthcare sector, as well as consumer packaging goods. Between these segments, they are basically 95% of our customer base. And what you'll notice is there is a regulatory overhang, and which is the common denominator with all these customers, and in terms of what we bring from a value perspective. As we look across our customer base, you'll notice that we have customers all over the world on a global basis, obviously a big segment in North America, but also in Europe and in Asia, as you can see from these countries. Our offices are primarily in North America. Our office is based out of Princeton, New Jersey. In Europe, our offices are based out of Paris, France, and then our development center and most of the support comes from Chennai, India as well. This was what you're looking at is the original configuration we launched 7 years ago. And I wanted to start off with that so that you can see how we have progressed to working with our customers, developing applications. The first objective was to help basically the marketing and the creative folks in the whole artwork creation process and the review process, and then the regulatory folks from a review perspective. So we launched a cloud-based solution, and our solution basically is a cloud, is a collaboration platform. And this collaboration is in a very broad sense for all packaging materials, not just for artwork, but as you can see, for specifications, etc. And the whole intent was to help internal departments as well as external suppliers, whether they're ad agencies or printers, to be able to collaborate, work on the artwork, track projects, etc., with the whole intent of making sure that the project gets done on time and it's compliant from a regulatory perspective. As we started working with large customers, which we will talk about in a few minutes, it became very clear that what they were looking for was a lot more than just artwork review. And so today, as we look at our solutions, which we'll get into in a lot more detail, is we help our customers around the whole issue around how do you manage content, in terms of, whether it's art, on the copy itself from a copy management perspective, but also print specifications, etc. In the design area, we make it productive to be able to use the artwork, to use some plug-in tools. And then obviously in the release area, you'll see that everything which has been created for the package now can be repurposed from an e-commerce perspective. And given what's happened in the last year or 2 years, from a COVID perspective, you can see that. The key thing I want to underline is, as you look at our core solution as well as all these add-on solutions, with the things we were looking for one was flexibility. How do we make sure that as customers need change, we make it flexible? How do we make sure that if they have some reporting requirements, whether it's mandatory, that is also customizable from a customer? And most important is, as they go through this journey, how do we support them, right? So those were the key markers we were working on. A couple of the things I wanted to share is, in terms of our capabilities, we have helped some customers with some artificial intelligence and tools to be able to make them more productive, which we can get into a little more detail. Obviously, we've been ISO certified for the 27001. For some of our farmer customers, we've been obviously we'll being help them in terms of getting compliance requirements met. It's specifically around CFR Part 11, and then some of the FDA requirements on the nutritional panel, as the regulatory change. And then obviously security has been a big thing. And everything we do, all our customer assets are stored with Microsoft. So for example, if it's a North American customer, the assets are served on service in North America. If it's European customers, in Europe and India. So that's worked out very well. And I think that's important from a security perspective as we go through this. One other thing we've noticed with our customers is the compliance and regulatory requirements are constantly changing. And this has become a very big challenge. So we've invested a lot of time and effort, and we have some experts who help our customers. For example, in the FDA arena, for pharma customers, we help them with CFR Part 11 compliance, getting into some of the IQP, QOQ issues, and a lot of that. For food customers on the nutritional panel, some of the rules around ingredients and claims and all that. So we have some bandwidth to help our customers on that as well. From a USDA perspective, we've helped the world's largest meat producer, JBS, Pilgrim's Pride, with some of the USDA requirements, and so did with customers like Sanderson Farms on the chicken side. And lastly, on the requirement side, because we have several alcohol-related customers, especially in the wine space, we had to build our knowledge on TTB, which is a regulatory agency which takes care of the requirements from a wine perspective. And we basically helped our customers with some rules-based automation in terms of helping our customers. The last slide I wanted to end up with is basically ending with our customers. We started with our customers, and I'll end with customers. This is a typical journey that our customers take. In the beginning, they might have a lot of manual processes, emails, etc. They start off by going to simple things like having a digital asset library, a simple workflow. And then they start looking at automation in terms of integrating systems, like whether it's the ERP system or whether it's their PIM system. And then finally looking across from a global perspective in how to expand their network. And more recently with the onslaught of e-commerce, we've seen a lot of activity in that. So this is typically what we see. And what you will hear in the second part of the presentation is, for example, when you look at the stage 5, the world's largest CPG company, basically we partnered with them to help them around copy management and content management, and Vilva will take you through that. We also will hear a case study with an agrochemical company on a global basis, based just out here in Philadelphia, and then around the world as well, where they have basically looked at how do they expand with the same portfolio on a global basis and how we help them, and Vilva will take you through that as well. You'll also hear a case study about a wine customer who started off with almost a manual process, and they've gone all the way through, and you'll see they're up here in this area, and Vilva will take you through that as well. And finally, we're going to end up with a farmer customer, the world's largest generic manufacturer, and how we partnered with them to be able to make sure that all the compliance requirements are met on them. So with that, I am going to turn it over to Vilva, and Vilva will take you through the 4 specific case studies, customer case studies I mentioned. Vilva, it's all yours.
So what we did for you today is pick 4 customer journeys. And I'm sure you'll relate to some of the challenges that our customers had and how we had put a solution together for them. The very first one is a very large CPG customer, close to 71 billion. And we're going to talk about how we help manage their packaging copy. So this large CPG customer, 65 plus brands marketed in 180 countries, the revenue of 71 billion. And their key challenges were Excel sheets everywhere. So if you imagine an artwork and all the copy for that, and what they were doing was putting all the text into an Excel files. These Excel files would then be shared with numerous department users, and all these department users would put their text in, copy and email back to other reviewers and approvers. And very soon, for one single product, they were juggling numerous versions of Excel files, which is obviously a problem. Visibility on the copy was very low because while everybody had their own copy of the Excel file, nobody knew what someone else was doing until everything was collated together. Consistency in language and translation. And obviously when you put in all the translations when they were, because they are a global company, the situation was turned into a nightmare. And obviously all of this was time consuming. So how did we give them a solution? How do we solve the problem for them? One of the first things we did was remove all the Excel sheets and transition them into a central intuitive system, pack copy that we have, where they can build and approve multilingual pack copy. So it's a central system where you can create any number of copy sheets, and all the copy elements that are in there are centrally managed. And for every copy element, it goes through a version control. Every one of them has its own workflow. So as it goes through the workflow from editor to approver to the translation agency and the approvals of those translations, everything is automatically version control. And all of them are available in one single place. So as a user, when you are putting your ingredient statement or whatever text it is, you have visibility across all the other copy elements that are there and what other people are doing. Not only that, you can also add your comments because it's a collaboration system in place. You can comment on it so that other users can actually see the information and change the text if required. You can also add instructions to this so that you can give instructions to your translation agency. You can give instructions to your design or pre-press. All of this contained in one central place. The other interesting part is, from a consistency point of view, the idea of reuse. Today, most of the text is reused. So if you have claims, if you have addresses, if you have, let's say, a website number or a toll-free number, all of these are reusable text that you want to make sure can be reused in every artwork or pack copy that you have. Having everything in a central system makes this possible, not only for English, but for every other language that you might have there. So not only does it improve the consistency, but it also makes sure across languages, you don't have to send them for translation if you already have an approved translation already in the system. So it saves money, it saves time, and obviously consistency goes up. So once all of the artworks, all of the pack copy are approved, you can export it out to an Excel, you can export it out to a GS1 compliant XML. And depending on the agency you work with or the pre-press team you work with, the XML can automatically be imported into an Adobe Illustrator. Or if you need, you can directly use ManageArtworks' own Adobe plugin where you can connect to the copy manager and consume the text across all languages directly from within Adobe Illustrator itself. The other interesting part is, fine, you got the copy, everything is managed and it's saved. Now, what happens is after the artwork itself is generated, we have a tool where you can take the copy information and all the text on the artwork, and the system can automatically compare them so that as a user, with a single click of a button, you know if all the text is exactly the same way on the copy or not. And it automatically highlight differences. And so that you as a reviewer of an artwork spend very little time trying to go through all the text and making sure it's correct. The system does that work for you. And imagine this in all multilingual, right? So being able to proofread multilingual text on an artwork can be painful and takes a lot of time. But here, Copy Manager integrated with your comparison tools makes it easy and simple for the reviewers. So this is the entire solution that we have implemented for them. So what it's done for them is taken away all the Excel files, brought them all into one central repository, made sure that it can integrate with their pre-press and compare the artwork so that there's consistency across the entire solution. So from the entire end-to-end solution that we provide, the content part is available, and obviously from the design side, how we integrate with the design tools is there. So it just gives you a feel for which parts of our solution has been implemented for this particular customer. So let's move on to the next customer journey. This is for a wine customer. This is about how we help them meet their bottling deadlines. So this is one of the top 5 wine producers in the US. And they have 40 plus brands and about 80 plus varietals, selling it over 50 plus countries and 800 million in revenue. Some of their challenges were, I would say the primary challenge was in meeting bottling dates. So if you look at the wine production, everybody is running towards that one single bottling date. And you got your TTB approval, the regulatory approval that needs to happen. Once the regulatory authorities give the approval, the internal department approvals need to happen. Then you need to get it to the printer, and they have a long lead time or different lead times depending on the component type. And once they are done, then you can get to the bottling. So all of this, managing it in Excel files, trying to juggle these dates, not knowing when each approval would happen, was a big challenge for them. And they had seasonal issues. Sometimes during the middle of the years, when there's a season, volumes would spike up. And doing things manually was a problem because they were unable to meet the demand in the market. And obviously, because of all of these challenges, the number of revisions were up. So the number of times they would have to iterate back and forth between the designer, the printer, and the departments was just too much to handle. And obviously, they didn't have a central system. So when you want to do a revision, they were hunting around for artworks, not knowing which one is the latest. So when we came in and put in ManageArtworks as our solution, one of the first things we did was take all the manual processes and convert them into customized workflows for them. Now, the workflows there were multiple workflows depending on their different component types. For example, they have regular labels, they have vintage labels, they have medallions. So depending on the type of components that they had, the workflows would be different because there would be different stakeholders and the number of stages through which it goes could be different. Once the workflows were all set up and done, the second was the project management part. This is where our system works backward. So once they put in the bottling date, our system can compute what should be the starting date and the ending date for each of the stages working backward. So let's say there's a bottling date that's set up. It would work backward and tell when should the printer actually start their print process. When should you expect TTB to give you the approved? So, well, things don't happen right all the time. So while you have these dates set up, there also is a way for them to go and adjust these dates. Let's say, for example, TTB delayed the approval or there was some issue in the approval. What would happen is they can go into the system and say, okay, we got to make our internal approval faster so that we can still meet the deadline. So the project management tool built on top of our system has the ability for our customers to go and change these dates, but the goal is always to meet the bottling date. So that was a huge improvement from the way they were handling it. And obviously the end result was all their projects were on time and they were able to meet the bottling dates. And of course, the sales people were happy because bottling dates never got postponed. Some of the SAP related information. So you get into you want to revise the tool, one of the wine labels. So you have so many different components. You have a front label, you have a back label, a neck label, and maybe something printed on the screw cap. All of these had to be done at the same time. So integrating with SAP, we brought in all the item codes and all the bill of materials. So looking at FG code in SAP, we were able to say, okay, this particular SKU had 4 components, and then they can decide which ones need to change and which ones don't need to change. So integration with SAP, integration to pull in their BOM and item code was an important factor for them. And obviously, today they were, or earlier they were putting in these codes manually and leading to typos and production-related issues. All of this ended up with having a central digital asset management system where they could go and search for any artwork any specification file, any brief that they have done at any time. And this again was a tremendous advantage for them. So they would share this across all their teams across their multiple locations. So today, I think they have more than 2,200 plus artworks running through the system, over 200 plus users. And out of these 200 plus users, they have about 50 plus suppliers. And all of these could be bottle manufacturers, label printers, all of them coming into one central system, everybody on the same page. So the primary solution we implemented for them was at the artwork review stage. So artwork review, print proofing, checklists, automated proofing, compare tools, all of that packaged in one central place along with the digital asset system. So this brings us to our third customer journey. This is a single global artwork implementation that we did for a large agrochemical company, one of the largest, I would say, the top 5. And this implementation was done both at the, not only in the US, but across the EU, Latin America, and the Asia Pacific. So this company has over 100 plus brands. They had a lot of mergers and acquisitions, and they built up the brands over that, marketed in over 120 plus countries, and having 5 billion in revenue. Their challenges were a little different. Obviously, they all had manual processes, and every time they acquired another company, they had to integrate the new company's processes into their system. And everything was manual, and we're obviously not able to handle all the volumes that are there. Another unique problem they had was the way the supply chain worked. They would have a product being initiated in the US to be sold in, let's say, Canada, but the manufacturing of the product would be done somewhere in Brazil. So you had people working in 3 different locations, and all of them needed access to one central system. But today, all of it was happening through email, and everybody had duplicate artworks on their desktops because someone in Brazil would make a copy of it, someone in Canada would have a different copy, and very soon there were so many versions of it, not knowing who has the latest version. Obviously, every region had their own regulatory requirements. Everyone would have to go through all of their own regulations and make sure their processes were adhering to that. So that again increased the complexity of them. And of course, similar to the wine company, they had ERP because every region had their own ERP instance, their own item codes, their own bill of material, and all of that stuff. So this was a pretty complex implementation. And from a solution perspective, it's still the same ManageArtworks, except that what we did this time was have everyone. When I say everyone, it's every region, every team across all their group companies come on to a single global system with a multilingual interface. So people in different regions are logging in with their own user interfaces in different languages, one central artwork repository. So it doesn't matter where the artwork is initiated from, where it's being sold, where it's being manufactured, it's all available in one single repository, no duplications at all. And integrating with SAP, all of the information, whether it's SAP codes, FG codes, depending on the regions, and the packaging codes are all available and integrated into the system. Not only this, every time they revised an artwork, we would dip into SAP and pull up all the inventory details and then show it to the initiator and say, okay, hey, there are already so many labels available in stock. What do you like to do? Would you like to dispose them? Would you postpone the time, your launch deadline so that you can exhaust all the inventory? All of this is built into the system so that the with seamless integration with SAP, and this is across regions. And the other interesting part is, while the system is a global system, you have local regulations, you have local printers. So the system is flexible enough to bring in workflows which are relevant for the local business with their own local business rules built in, and integrate local printers and agencies if required. So as a user logging in from one location, I would see my own ecosystem and my own extended enterprise, whereas someone in another region sees their printers, their agencies. So it was a pretty integrated system, and I think fast forwarding to now, when all these regions are using it, it's such a seamless system across the globe. And as they now acquire more companies, it's easy integration across all their newer labels and newer products that they bring into their portfolio. So about 3,000 plus artworks running through the system at any time, 500 plus users, 50 different teams, right? So they have teams from domestic products, export products, teams with different product lines, and all across 15 different markets. So for them, while it's the artwork review part, which is the biggest, but there's so much going on, right? It's not just the artwork part. There's print proofs, there's integration with SAP, all of this happening in one central system along with the digital. And all of these, today they had other systems. So we have migrated all their data also into our system. So it's not that they have to work on two systems at any point in time. So for majority of our customers, when we go in and look at and implement a ManageArtworks, we make sure all the existing artworks are brought in. So if they need to revise, if they start a new artwork, they have everything in one central place. So that brings us to the fourth customer journey that we have for you. This is for an OTC company, for whom we have pretty much automated the entire packaging department. It's one of the most trusted names in healthcare, 200 plus brands marketed in 100 plus countries, $2.5 billion in revenue. And what are the challenges? They had an existing system. So when they approached us, they had an existing system, highly inefficient, unable to handle the kind of complexity that they had. And they gave us a very strict deadline, and said, hey, we need this up and running within 8 to 10 weeks. And because their existing vendor was kind of, abandoning them. So they had migration uncertainties. They didn't know what to do, what happens to all the data that was already there. And that's when we went in. And of course, because of all the uncertainty, their artwork request to delivery was about 38 weeks. And obviously that wasn't good. They needed to reduce that timeline, because of which they had delayed launches. And their ecosystem was, I would say, pretty complex. They had their own manufacturing locations across the world. They had contract manufacturing, their own packagers. They had packaging third-party labelers, 3PLs, and all of these people had to be brought into one central system. So ManageArtworks to the rescue. What we've done for them is we have a special pharma-specific version of our ManageArtworks, where we have a system of records. What the system of records does is it's really about taking your packaging bill of material, irrespective of how many components they are, and linking all of them, so that you know that if you have a certain specification, you know where it's used. If you have a die line or a technical drawing, you know where it's used. So the entire SKU, the bill of material, the number of the SKUs, the components, the artworks, the die line, the specifications, all of them are linked together, and it's all interdependent. So one changes, the system automatically triggers alerts saying that, hey, this has changed. So all of these need to change now, and it automatically triggers workflows and tasks and approvals and so on. So it's all integrated. So which means that the SAP data flows in automatically. And because there's bill of material and specifications, each item code for each packaging material as well as printed material all the SAP codes are integrated into our system. So bring in customers. So being an OTC, being the OTC space, they had customers like Walmart and CVS. All of them had to review and approve the label. So customers were on the same system, the contract manufacturers, print vendors, co-packers, all of them in one central integrated system. And depending on the type of product, depending on who, which customer, which contract manufacturer, which co-packer needs to, automatically it goes in. So, and this was a rollout across the US, EU, and in India. And it's a integrated system because similar to the other example that I showed, the manufacturing would happen in another country, the sales is another country. So the integration between the two stakeholders, printers being here, the approvers being in another country, all of this happening in one central system. So this solution, when we implemented, today they have over 5,000 plus artworks running through the system. And because of the entire ecosystem, they have about 650 plus users in 18 different teams and across so many different countries. So these are the four customer journeys we thought would make sense, and maybe some of these you can relate to some of the challenges and maybe solutions that we bring in could be things that you can also relate to and see if it's helpful for you. And again, some of the areas, some of the modules that we have implemented was obviously on the content side, the copy, the packaging spec, die line management, and of course the entire end-to-end records related and the artworks approval, print proof approval, and so on. So I wanted to take a minute to talk about implementation timelines. This is very important because all of these great systems, global systems or integration with the entire ecosystem where all the external stakeholders come in and SAP integration, how long does it take? So these are the timelines, and no exaggeration, or we're not, these are actual timelines that we have taken. 10 weeks, 6 weeks, 12, and 10. And this is the typical timelines that we take. These are not 8 months, 10 months, but our implementations are typically from 6 to 8 weeks, depending on the integrations. It could spread up to 10 to 12, but between, and this is why, when, as I said, the OTC customer who came in and said, hey, we have a 10-week window by which we need to replace because we have regulatory requirements, we were able to do that. And that shows about how configurable our system is, how mature it is, and how we can integrate with systems and roll out a global system in about 10 to 12 weeks. So a little about the services. All of these customers are obviously use our implementation and rollout services. We do migration of all their artworks and data, existing artworks. All the metadata comes into our system so that we can reuse that. 24/7 support, both for end users and admin support, and of course training. As and when new people are onboarded into the system, we have a way to retrain them if required. Validation services for pharma companies, very important, so that they can make sure that they have all their FDA and EU and X11 requirements taken care of. And integration to a wide variety of systems, starting with ERP, PLM, PIM systems, QMS. Some of them are upstream, some of them are downstream. And even from a reporting point of view, we have a very good reporting and analytics system, but some organizations have a centralized BI tool into which we can push all the information so that you have a unified way to look at all your KPIs. And of course, we have a single sign-on so that you can reuse some of the logins and services from that perspective. So I want to leave you with what we are working on right now. And this is a statement. What if we can use AI to design artworks? This is what we are working on today. And I think many of our customers have come back and asked us, how do we do adaptations quickly? And today we are in a position to provide a solution for this. We would love to hear from more, and maybe we can work on a one-on-one basis. Please do reach out to us. We would love to show you how our AI tools can help you in the design work itself. Thank you for taking your time. Please do reach out. We have our contact numbers and our email ID. Visit our website, and you can use the 2D barcode or QR code to get to our website quickly. Thank you again.